Let's talk about querying by example. Query by example is a feature in Spring Data JPA that allows us to create queries by providing an example entity. So instead of writing specific queries, we can build a query dynamically based on the values of an example object. Let's see this in action. So here in our user service class, inside the fetch products method, we're going to take a different approach for finding products. Let's delete these two lines. First, we create a product object, var product equals new product. Okay. Now we set the fields we want to use for finding products. For example, we can set product name to, now look, in my database, in the products table, I currently have a product called product 2. Let's say we want to find all products that contain the word product in their name. So we set name to product. Next, we create an example object. Here we call example. Now this interface is defined in org.springframework.data.domain. It has a factory method. It's a static method of, here we pass an example object, which is called a probe. So we pass our product and receive an example object. Now we can pass this to our repository to find all products that are similar to this product. To do that, first we have to change the type of our repository from CRUD repository to JPA repository. Now, quick refresher. Earlier, we talked about different repository interfaces. So far, we have been using the CRUD repository, which gives us these capabilities. But now we are switching to JPA repository, which gives us additional functionalities. One of them is finding by example. So we changed the type of our repository. Now back to our user service. Here we call product repository.findAll. Now look, we have two overloads of this method that receive an example object. So we pass our example object here. We get a bunch of products and then print each on the terminal. Now let's go to our main method and call fetch products. Let's run the application and see our query. All right, look, we're selecting these columns from the products table. Now look at the where clause, where name equals whatever. Obviously, with this query, we cannot find our product because we have exact matching. We don't have a product by this name, right? So we need to customize our matching behavior and find all products whose name contains this keyword. To do that, we have to create an example matcher object for customizing the matching behavior. So here we call example matcher dot matching. Now look at the return type of this method. It returns an example matcher object. This is another example of the builder pattern. So we can call this and chain a few method calls to build an example matcher object. Let me show you. So we call dot matching dot. Now here we have a bunch of methods for customizing matching behavior. For example, we can call with string matcher and pass example matcher dot string matcher dot containing. Here we also have default, ending, exact, regex, and starting. So if you want to find all products whose name starts with this keyword, we can use starting here. In this example, we're going to go with containing. So we create an example matcher and store it here. Next, we pass that as part of creating an example matcher. Now let's rerun our application and look at our query. All right, this time we see our product, beautiful. Now look at our where clause, where name, like. So the equality operator is replaced with the like operator, okay? Now, as you have noticed, by default, fields that have null values are ignored, but we can always include them. For example, here we can call with include null values and look at how our query changes. All right, this time in our where clause, we have multiple conditions where price is null, ID is null, category ID is null, and so on. Now we can also exclude one or more of these fields. So back to our matcher, here we call with ignore paths. And here we can pass one or more property paths. Let's ignore ID and description. Let's rerun our application. All right, take a look. This time in our where class, we don't have conditions for ID and description. We have name, category ID, and price. So this is how we can create queries using an example object. Now, this approach has a few limitations you have to know. First, there is no support for nested properties. Second, there is no support for matching collections or maps. Also, string matching is database specific. So depending on your database, string matching can support starts, contains, ends, and regex for strings. The other limitation is that for all other types, exact matching is used. So for price, we cannot find products whose price falls within a given range.